The skyrocketing cost of living has left millions of people working at full-time jobs or a number of part-time jobs still unable to afford a place to live.
Since 2021, rents have surged by up to 40%. Evictions are breaking records. Over 900,000 Americans now live in vehicles, and billions in government funding can't stop it. In 2026, the housing crisis has entered a new phase, where working families, seniors, and children are being forced into RVs just to survive. This is the story behind the statistics. Between 2021 and 2026, rent in major American cities increased by 30 to 40%, while average wages rose less than 12% during the same period. In cities like Phoenix, Tampa, Atlanta, and Las Vegas, median one-bedroom apartments now cost between $1,500 and $2,100 per month, even in working-class neighborhoods. Meanwhile, the median hourly wage for service, retail, and warehouse workers remains under $19 per hour, translating to roughly $3,000 per month before taxes. Housing experts recommend spending no more than 30% of income on rent. Yet millions of Americans now spend 45 to 60% just to keep a roof over their heads. For a family earning $45,000 annually, affordable rent should be around $1,125 per month. But in 2026, that same family often faces rents above $1,600. This pressure is pushing working families out of apartments and into vehicles. Many landlords now require incomes 3 times the rent amount, instantly locking out millions of qualified renters. As rents surge faster than wages, housing is no longer a basic necessity for millions of Americans. It has become a luxury reserved for those who can afford it. The gap between what people earn and what they must pay continues widening, creating an impossible situation for working families across the nation. Evictions in America have surged dramatically since 2023. By 2026, major metro areas report eviction filings 30 to 50% higher than pre-pandemic levels. Cities like Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, and Phoenix process thousands of eviction cases every single month, overwhelming housing courts. In some counties, tenants are removed within just 14 days of falling behind on rent. Unlike past decades, today's evictions happen faster and with fewer protections. Pandemic-era moratoriums are completely gone. Legal aid funding is severely limited. Many tenants never see a lawyer during their eviction proceedings. Studies show over 85% of landlords have legal representation, while fewer than 10% of tenants can afford one. Once an eviction is filed, even if tenants later pay the full amount owed, the record follows them for years. Landlords use eviction databases to blacklist renters, making future housing nearly impossible to secure. Families with one missed payment suddenly find themselves rejected everywhere they apply. An eviction also triggers financial collapse. Court fees, moving costs, storage units, and vehicle towing quickly exceed $3,000 to $5,000. For low-income households already struggling, that's absolutely devastating. Without savings, many move directly into cars, vans, and RVs. By 2026, eviction has become America's fastest pathway to homelessness. It no longer affects only the unemployed. Teachers, nurses, warehouse workers, and veterans are being displaced. One late paycheck now means losing everything, forcing families onto streets with nowhere to turn. America's elderly population is growing rapidly, yet retirement income has not kept up with housing costs. In 2026, the average Social Security payment is approximately $1,900 per month. After Medicare premiums are deducted, many seniors take home closer to $1,700. Meanwhile, average rent for a one-bedroom apartment now exceeds $1,500 in most metropolitan areas across the country. That leaves seniors with less than $200 remaining for food, medicine, utilities, and transportation. Many simply cannot survive on this amount. Fixed incomes do not adjust for sudden rent hikes. When landlords raise rent by $300 or $400, seniors have nowhere to go. More than 40% of Americans over 65 rely primarily on Social Security as their only income source. Fewer than 1 in 3 has meaningful retirement savings. Rising medical costs worsen the crisis dramatically. Prescription drugs, dental care, and mobility aids drain what little money remains. As a direct result, thousands of seniors now live in RVs, vans, and converted buses. Many park near hospitals, churches, or public libraries. Some still work part-time jobs just to buy gas and groceries. Others rely on food banks for basic meals. This is a silent tragedy unfolding across America. People who worked for 40 years are ending life without stability or dignity. Instead of retirement communities, many are sleeping in parking lots. America's housing crisis has turned aging into a survival challenge, forcing the elderly into impossible situations. By 2026, tens of thousands of families across America are living in vehicles. School districts report rising numbers of mobile students, children without permanent addresses. In California alone, over 250,000 students experience housing instability each year. Families park overnight at big box stores, industrial parks, hospital lots, and church grounds. They rotate locations constantly to avoid tickets and harassment. Parents wake up at 5 a.m. to move before security arrives. Kids change clothes in public bathrooms and brush teeth at gas stations. Living this way costs more than many people realize. Gas, repairs, campground fees, and storage units can exceed $600 to $900 per month. Yet families accept these costs because apartments are completely unreachable with current income levels. Children suffer the most from this instability. Studies show homeless students are twice as likely to fall behind academically and 3 times more likely to experience anxiety and depression. Without stable internet access, quiet space for homework, or consistent sleep schedules, learning becomes nearly impossible. Parents carry constant stress every single day. One broken transmission can mean total collapse. One police warning can mean vehicle towing and losing everything. This is not lifestyle choice or adventure. It is economic exile from traditional housing systems. Families are being pushed out of apartments and forced into survival mode. They wake each day uncertain where they'll park that night, constantly moving, constantly worried, trying desperately to maintain normalcy for their children while living in vehicles. Recreational vehicles were once symbols of freedom and travel adventures. In 2026, they are increasingly used as emergency housing. Estimates suggest over 900,000 Americans now live full-time in RVs, vans, and converted vehicles, many involuntarily rather than by choice. Used RV prices surged dramatically after 2020. Even older models now sell for $15,000 to $30,000, putting them completely out of reach for many families. Those who can afford them often finance purchases at high interest rates, turning housing into long-term debt obligations. RV living is not cheap or simple. Monthly costs include insurance, fuel, maintenance, dumping fees, propane, and parking. Many spend $700 to $1,200 per month just to stay mobile and functional. Breakdowns are catastrophic events. Major repairs can easily exceed $5,000, wiping out any savings instantly. Despite these significant costs, people choose RVs because traditional apartments have become impossible to afford. RVs offer privacy, safety, and control, things emergency shelters cannot provide. But they also isolate people from essential services and long-term stability. America has created a system where citizens must buy vehicles to survive rather than accessing stable housing. Housing has been replaced by wheels and constant movement. When RVs become shelters rather than recreational vehicles, it signals complete systemic failure. The shift from RVs as vacation tools to RVs as permanent housing represents a fundamental breakdown in America's ability to house its working population adequately and humanely. As vehicle living increases nationwide, cities across America are responding with bans instead of solutions. By 2026, more than 70% of major American cities enforce some form of no overnight parking, no vehicle habitation, or anti-camping ordinance. These laws make it illegal to sleep in cars, vans, or RVs, even when people have absolutely nowhere else to go. In cities like San Diego, Phoenix, Denver, and Seattle, RV dwellers face fines of $50 to $250 per night. Repeat violations can lead to vehicle impoundment. Towing an RV can cost $500 to $1,200 up front, plus daily storage fees of $60 to $120. Most families cannot afford these amounts. Once towed, many lose their only shelter permanently. Some cities created safe parking programs, but capacity is extremely limited compared to demand. Los Angeles has fewer than 3,000 legal parking spots for over 50,000 vehicle dwellers. San Francisco offers under 1,000 spots. Demand exceeds supply by 10 to 1 or more. Instead of building affordable housing, cities invest millions in enforcement activities. Police patrols, surveillance systems, and signage cost taxpayers billions annually. The result is constant displacement without resolution. Families move every few nights, losing access to schools, jobs, and doctors. These laws do not reduce homelessness numbers. They hide it from public view. They push people into more dangerous, isolated areas like industrial zones, floodplains, and deserts, increasing deaths and disappearances significantly. Law enforcement has become the front line of America's housing crisis. By 2026, police departments in major cities spend 20 to 30% of patrol time responding to homelessness-related calls. Officers issue citations for loitering, trespassing, sleeping in vehicles, and minor vehicle violations. A single ticket can range from $75 to $500. For someone living paycheck to paycheck, this is absolutely devastating. Unpaid tickets lead to warrants, suspended licenses, and eventual arrest. Losing a driver's license often means losing a job, trapping people deeper in poverty cycles. Many RV and vehicle dwellers report being stopped multiple times per month. Officers wake families at night, demand immediate relocation, and threaten towing. Children witness these interactions repeatedly, increasing trauma and fear of authority figures. Police officers are not trained social workers. Most departments lack resources to provide housing referrals, mental health support, or financial aid. Officers are forced into impossible roles, enforcing laws that essentially punish survival. Cities spend billions on policing homelessness while dramatically underfunding actual housing solutions. In 2025 alone, California spent over $3 billion on homeless-related law enforcement and cleanup operations. Yet encampments and vehicle dwellers continue to grow. This approach criminalizes poverty rather than addressing root causes. Instead of stabilizing families, it destabilizes them further, turning economic hardship into legal disaster. People trying to survive are pushed deeper into crisis by systems meant to protect them, creating endless cycles of displacement and punishment. In 2026, most American states still lack strong rent control or tenant protection laws. Over 30 states prohibit rent control entirely. In these states, landlords can raise rent by any amount, with minimal notice requirements. In Texas, Florida, Georgia, and Arizona, rent hikes of 20 to 40% in 1 year are completely legal. Tenants often receive only 30 days' notice. A family paying $1,200 can suddenly owe $1,600 with no room for negotiation. Eviction protections are equally weak across most states. Many allow no-cause evictions, meaning landlords can remove tenants without providing any explanation. Late fees often exceed $150 per month, compounding debt quickly and making catching up nearly impossible. Security deposits now average $2,000 to $4,000 in many cities. Combined with first and last month's rent requirements, move-in costs can exceed $6,000. For low-income families, this is completely impossible to afford. Legal aid is severely limited nationwide. Only about 1 in 5 eligible tenants receive housing assistance. Most navigate complex legal systems alone without representation. Without strong protections, renters live in constant fear of displacement. They avoid reporting mold, leaks, and unsafe conditions because retaliation is legal. Housing becomes unstable by design rather than accident. The system clearly favors property owners over human survival needs. Tenants have minimal rights while facing maximum vulnerability. This imbalance creates conditions where one unexpected expense or late payment can trigger complete housing loss, forcing families into vehicles and homelessness. Over the past decade, Wall Street firms and private equity groups have taken control of America's housing market. By 2026, corporate landlords own over 25% of single-family rental homes in major metropolitan areas. Companies like investment trusts and hedge funds buy thousands of homes at once, often paying cash above asking price. They outbid families and convert entire neighborhoods into rental zones. Rents are set by algorithms designed to maximize profit, not community stability or affordability. These firms raise rents aggressively year after year. Internal reports show average annual increases of 10 to 18%, even in slow markets. Additional fees for maintenance, pets, parking, and utilities are added monthly. Maintenance requests often go unanswered for extended periods. Tenants report waiting months for basic repairs. Complaints are handled by call centers located far away, not local managers. Corporate landlords also lead eviction filings nationwide. Studies show institutional landlords file evictions at twice the rate of small property owners. Evictions are automated and completely impersonal processes. Housing has become a financial asset, rather than a human necessity. Homes are treated like stocks to be traded. When investors profit from instability and displacement, it becomes part of the business model. The shift from individual landlords to corporate ownership fundamentally changes rental relationships. Tenants become data points in profit algorithms. Housing stability becomes secondary to quarterly earnings reports. Communities are disrupted as corporate entities prioritize returns over people, creating systematic displacement that serves financial interests rather than human needs. America's emergency shelter system is completely overwhelmed. By 2026, most urban shelters operate at 95 to 110% capacity year-round. Many turn away families nightly due to lack of space. Shelters are designed for short-term crisis intervention, not permanent displacement. Average stays now exceed 120 days, far beyond intended limits. Beds are scarce everywhere. Waiting lists stretch for months in major cities. Conditions are often unsafe and uncomfortable. Reports document theft, violence, infestations, and complete lack of privacy. Families are frequently separated by gender rules. Pets are banned from most shelters. Curfews conflict with work schedules and job requirements. Many shelters require documentation like identification cards, proof of residency, and background checks, which homeless people often lack. Others exclude people with minor criminal records from decades ago. Funding is inconsistent and unpredictable. Federal and state grants fluctuate yearly, causing unexpected closures and staff layoffs. In 2025, over 15% of small shelters nationwide shut down completely due to budget cuts. As shelters fail to meet demand, people turn to vehicles instead. RVs offer safety, privacy, and autonomy, even if financially unstable. When emergency systems collapse under pressure, survival becomes individualized rather than supported. The shelter system was never designed to handle permanent housing displacement at this scale. Built for temporary crisis, it cannot absorb the ongoing flood of families losing housing. This creates impossible situations where emergency services fail those who need them most desperately. RV parks were once affordable alternatives for travelers and retirees. In 2026, many have transformed into luxury resorts or high-profit housing zones. Monthly rates that averaged $400 to $600 in 2018 now reach $900 to $1,500 in many states, especially in California, Florida, Arizona, and Texas. Some parks charge over $2,000 per month for long-term stays. Utilities, internet access, and parking fees are often extra charges. Background checks and income requirements are becoming common practices, excluding low-income residents entirely. Many parks now ban older RVs, often setting 10-year rules that disqualify affordable vehicles. A family with a functional but older RV may be denied entry simply because it looks outdated or worn. As demand rises dramatically, parks prioritize tourists who pay nightly rates of $60 to $120, rather than long-term residents paying monthly. Stable renters are replaced with short-term profit opportunities. Zoning laws prevent new RV parks from being built in most areas. Local opposition blocks expansion efforts. Supply shrinks while demand continues growing. For many vehicle dwellers, RV parks were their last stable housing option. As prices rise beyond reach, they are forced back onto streets, deserts, and industrial zones, making homelessness even more dangerous and unstable. The transformation of RV parks from affordable housing alternatives to luxury destinations eliminates another refuge for displaced families. What was once accessible becomes exclusive, pushing vulnerable people further into precarious situations with fewer safe options remaining. By 2026, more than 45% of homeless Americans hold regular jobs. Many work in warehouses, retail stores, food service, healthcare support, and delivery services. They clock in daily, then sleep in vehicles at night. These workers earn between $14 and $22 per hour, yet cannot afford stable housing. After taxes, rent, insurance, food, and transportation costs, nothing remains for saving or emergencies. Because they shower at gyms, change at work, and keep clean clothes, coworkers often never know their situation. Teachers, nurses, and managers sit beside people who slept in parking lots hours earlier. This invisibility delays solutions significantly. Policymakers underestimate homelessness because it remains hidden. People assume homelessness means unemployment, addiction, or crime, ignoring economic reality completely. Working homeless people rarely qualify for aid programs. They earn too much for assistance, but too little for rent. This gap traps millions in impossible situations. Many work overtime just to afford gas and vehicle repairs. Burnout is common and severe. Missed shifts due to breakdowns or police harassment lead to job loss, deepening the crisis. America now has a class of people who are fully employed yet permanently unstable. This represents a historic failure of both labor and housing systems working together. The existence of employed homeless workers exposes fundamental flaws in economic structures. When full-time work cannot provide stable housing, the social contract breaks down entirely, leaving millions working hard while remaining homeless. Living in vehicles takes a severe toll on physical and mental health. By 2026, medical researchers report that homeless individuals are 3 times more likely to suffer chronic illness compared to housed populations. Extreme temperatures are deadly dangers. In Arizona and Nevada, vehicle interiors reach 150 degrees Fahrenheit in summer months. In northern states, winter temperatures drop below 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Each year, thousands die from heat stroke and hypothermia. Lack of sanitation spreads disease rapidly. Without regular showers or toilet access, infections increase dramatically. Skin conditions, respiratory illness, and untreated wounds are common problems. Mental health deteriorates rapidly under constant stress. Sleep deprivation, ongoing fear, and uncertainty lead to anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Suicide rates among homeless adults are 4 times higher than national averages. Medical care is difficult to access consistently. Missed appointments, lack of insurance, and transportation barriers prevent treatment. Emergency room visits become the only option, costing taxpayers billions annually. Children living in vehicles show higher rates of developmental delays and emotional disorders that affect them long-term. Homelessness is not just a housing crisis, it is a public health emergency unfolding in plain sight across America. The physical and mental health consequences create lifelong impacts that extend far beyond the immediate housing loss. Without stable housing, maintaining health becomes nearly impossible. Simple illnesses become serious. Chronic conditions worsen. Mental health crumbles. The connection between housing and health is undeniable and devastating. In 2026, over 1.3 million American children experience homelessness each year. Many live in cars, vans, RVs, or temporary shelters with their families. And these children change schools frequently throughout the year. Some attend 3 or 4 different schools in one year. Academic performance drops sharply. Homeless students are 87% more likely to drop out before graduating. Without quiet space, reliable internet access, or consistent sleep schedules, learning suffers tremendously. Homework is done in parking lots and fast food restaurants using public Wi-Fi. Mental health is deeply affected by unstable living. Children report high levels of fear, shame, and isolation from peers. Many hide their situation from friends to avoid judgment. Nutrition is unstable and inadequate. Families rely on cheap fast food and food banks for meals. Childhood obesity and malnutrition often coexist in the same children. Parents feel constant guilt and overwhelming stress. Family relationships strain under intense pressure. Domestic conflict increases in confined vehicle spaces. These children grow up believing instability is normal life. Without intervention, many repeat the cycle as adults, perpetuating homelessness across generations. America is raising a generation in survival mode, not because of war or natural disaster, but because housing is unaffordable for working families. The long-term consequences of childhood homelessness extend far beyond immediate hardship. Educational gaps, trauma, and learned instability shape entire lives, creating cycles that prove extremely difficult to break without comprehensive support and stable housing. Since 2020, Federal, state, and local governments have spent over $250 billion on homelessness programs nationwide. Yet homelessness continues to rise dramatically. California alone has spent more than $24 billion since 2018. New York and Washington spend billions annually. Still, encampments and vehicle dwellers multiply across cities. Much funding goes to administration, consulting, and bureaucracy rather than direct services. Studies show up to 40% of funds never reach actual housing or people in need. Projects take years to complete when they happen at all. A single affordable housing unit can cost $600,000 to $900,000 in some cities. At that price, scaling becomes impossible. Short-term programs dominate spending priorities. Hotels, shelters, and temporary housing recycle people through systems without permanent solutions or stability. Corruption and mismanagement are recurring problems in many cities. Audits repeatedly find missing funds and failed contracts that waste taxpayer money. Taxpayers believe they are funding solutions to homelessness. Instead, they are funding systems that sustain crisis rather than solving it. Without accountability and transparency, spending becomes symbolic rather than effective at creating change. The disconnect between money spent and results achieved reveals fundamental problems in how homelessness programs are designed and administered. Billions flow into systems that perpetuate problems rather than solving them, leaving homeless populations without the housing they desperately need while draining public resources. If current trends continue unchanged, housing experts predict over 1.2 million vehicle dwellers by 2027. Rents are projected to rise another 10 to 15%. Wages are not keeping pace with these increases. Climate change will worsen living conditions significantly. Heat waves, floods, and fires will displace more families. Insurance costs will rise dramatically. Available housing will shrink further. Automation and layoffs will increase job instability across industries. One missed paycheck will remain catastrophic for millions. More cities will criminalize homelessness with stricter laws. More families will live in hidden zones away from public view. Social trust will erode between neighbors. When people become competitors for parking space and survival resources, communities fracture permanently. Without major reform, including rent stabilization, mass housing construction, wage growth, and healthcare access, the crisis will accelerate rapidly. This is not temporary disruption. It is structural collapse of housing systems. America is approaching a critical tipping point. Either housing becomes a human right again with policy changes, or homelessness becomes permanent for millions. The next year will determine whether America addresses its housing crisis or accepts widespread homelessness as normal. Current trajectories point toward continued deterioration unless fundamental changes occur. The question is not whether the crisis will worsen, but whether society will finally respond with solutions matching the scale of the problem facing working families nationwide.